Camels.
Somehow you popped this out. There you go.
Ah, all right. Great.
Comes, guys.
Okay. Hello, Brad. Can you hear us?
Nope.
Say no.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
Hello.
Can you hear us, Brad? You can't hear us.
Can you hear us?
You got something down there that's.
Bear with us, Brad.
Brad. I got you. You got a bunch of devices in one room. I understand.
Yeah.
Can you hear us
It's a
now?
nice way to say we have.
How about now? Can you hear us now?
Here.
Nope.
I can hear you, but there was a lot of kind of echo and feedback behind it.
All right. Isn't that the first question, the one we added? Why are you looking to move to this one?
When we
Isn't
Zoom
that collectively
like
that- we
this,
don't have the same thing on
if
4?
all the rest of you are muted except when you're asking.
Isn't 4 the same thing? Wait a minute, we're gonna add that? Why are you looking to go here? Why, that's the first question.
How about now, Brad? Can you hear us
We
now?
don't need to add it.
That's true.
Yeah, I can hear you okay, Eric. There's still certainly some echo behind it, but I'm picking up your voice as it's coming through.
April, I don't think you have to add that part. That's the first question. Ask them why they want to be here.
He didn't
Okay.
answer. So I asked,
Oh, okay, all right.
but
All
good
right.
point.
We're hearing you just fine, Brad.
Perfect. That's the important thing. And Gary just sent me the question, so even if I miss little bits here and there, I'm sure I'll be able to keep up.
Comes off.
All right. Well, I just ask board members be intentional and speak into this microphone when it's your question time. All right, Brad, we'll get started here. Got a little script to read you. Good afternoon and welcome to La Crescent Hoka Public Schools. Thank you for meeting with us about becoming our school district's next superintendent. As you may know, we will be interviewing several candidates today, and it is our intention to have second-round interviews on March 7th of this year. All candidates will be notified by MSBA as soon as the school board has finished our first round of deliberations. School board members will rotate asking you questions today, and we will all be taking notes to assist us in our deliberations. Please know we're listening carefully while we write and do not intend to be disrespectful. Also, we have allocated 1 hour for the interview, and our last question will be whether you have any questions for us. You may use whatever time remains for this purpose. We've provided a copy of the interview questions for you. Please note there are 16 questions. And MSBA's representatives will notify us when there are 30, 15, and 5 minutes remaining. I'd now like to open this interview by asking the school board members to introduce themselves. If Jeff Conway wants to start.
Jeff Kopp? Hi, I'm Jeff Conway.
Hi, Jeff.
How are you doing?
The other bald Jeff in our district. Okay.
Hi, I'm Greg Strimka.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, Brad. I'm April Carlson.
Pleasure to meet you, April.
Hello, I'm Wade Welper.
Hi, Wade.
And Brad, I'm Eric Morgan.
Thanks,
All
Eric.
right, we'll now begin with our first question.
All right,
Take it away,
Brad,
Jeff.
you want me to go? All right.
Yes, please.
Brad, can you tell us about yourself and why you are interested in becoming La Crescent Hoka Public Schools' next superintendent?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And first of all, I just want to open by saying I'm certainly honored to be here tonight. I appreciate the opportunity to spend the next hour with you all. And, I appreciate your willingness to make this virtual setup work tonight. I know it's not ideal. I would much prefer to be there in person with you, but given my considerable distance from you right now, I appreciate the opportunity to join virtually. And if I happen to move along in this process, I'd love to connect with you in person on Monday. I would make it a point to get a flight to Minnesota over the weekend and join you in person on Monday. So, gosh, so I'm joining you from Oregon today. We've been out here in Oregon now for the past 5 years, but southeastern Minnesota is certainly home, and we're looking to return home. I grew up, born and raised in Winona. Started my career in Winona and spent the first 13 years as part of Winona Area Public Schools. First as a teacher and a coach at the high school level, an athletic director and assistant principal at the high school level, elementary principal, middle school principal, and now I've spent the last 5 years serving as principal in Oregon. High school is called Molalla High School. We're smack dab in the Willamette Valley, kind of between Portland and Salem. As I look out my window right now, we've got just a classic rainy Oregon day. It's a gray rainy day, which is kind of what we get this time of the year. We've loved it out here. Frankly, we felt 5 years ago. My wife and I were both born and raised in Winona, and it was like, you know what, we need to spread our wings a little bit. We need to venture out and try something else for a bit, and we did. Like I said, it's been a wonderful 5 years, but family is certainly pulling us back to southeastern Minnesota, and we'd love to make this La Crescent Hoka superintendent position a part of that return to that corner of the state. So a bit about kind of my interest in this position specifically. First, I want to just say a word about my interest in the superintendent role generally. Certainly, this has been the path that I've seen myself on. In recent years, I actually, full disclosure, I interviewed for a couple of superintendent positions out here in Oregon last spring, and it's simply an issue of, I think about the role that I play within the school district. I think about the skills and attributes that I possess as an educator. And I think about the impact that I can have on students and on staff. And it feels to me like this is a role that I can really maximize that positive impact, particularly on students and staff. Why La Crescent Hoka specifically? Again, this is, that's home for me. I not La Crescent specifically, but obviously right next door. And we're just excited to be back in that corner of the world. We think that, La Crescent Hoka certainly has so much to offer their students, and that's certainly an appealing piece for me as I look at this particular position. Thanks for the question, Jeff.
You're welcome.
What have you done to upgrade the educational program in schools under your leadership? And how have you evaluated the results?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is a focus on building predictable systems and structures for student support. That's taken on a lot of different forms, depending on what level I've been at, depending on what the needs of that particular school and community are. I'll pause for just a minute right there and say, look, my first priority as coming in as a new superintendent would be to look at what are the existing structures, what are the existing systems that are really working well for students, and where are the gaps, right? I mean, that's what we do as educational leaders, is try to identify where we can continue to make those tweaks and those adjustments. La Crescent Hoka has a lot of really, really good things going for it right now. The results of the district certainly have historically been really strong. Yet we also know there's always room for growth. There's always room for improvement. And so that's always my first priority anytime I've gone into a new position, and this would be no different, is to say what's working well and where are those opportunities for improvement. And when I think about how I have impacted educational programs in every school and every position that I've been in, it's about putting those predictable systems and structures in place that support student learning. When I say systems and structures, I mean they can't be dependent on a person or a few people. They have to be, built in to the structure of the school and of the district. And that's really what creates that long-term success over the course of time for districts. So I'll give you a few examples maybe. Go back to my elementary experience for just a moment. I was a principal at Washington Kosciuszko Elementary in Winona. And, quite frankly, a high needs student population, real high free and reduced lunch population. And we had some great programs in place for students, but frankly, they weren't landing where we needed them to land. The students that were taking advantage of those programs weren't probably the ones that really needed that support. And so we started to look at, the question asks about evaluating results. Well, we're starting to ask ourselves, like, why aren't we getting the results that we need out of some of our highest need students? And frankly, a lot of the resources had been invested in some really high quality after school programming, but the students that were taking advantage of that after school programming weren't the ones that needed it most. So we said, look, we've got to take those resources, we've got to shift them to within the school day. We have to take those people and those dollars and those good programs that we've built and embed that within the structure of the school day. And that's exactly what we did. We shifted. We weren't spending any more money. We didn't hire any more staff, but we shifted how we were utilizing those resources that we had available. And frankly, it did pay dividends for us. I'm really proud of the fact that, and this is, I've been surrounded by really, really high quality educators throughout my career, and that was no exception. But we were actually recognized as a National Blue Ribbon School during my tenure there as principal because of the work we did to close that achievement gap with some of our most at-risk students. So that's one example I'll give from my elementary experience. I'll give one more recent example from my current position at Malala High School. We have about a 25%, a little lower than I guess right now, about 23% of our student population is Hispanic. And historically, that's a student group that has lagged academically behind their white classmates. And we've spent a lot of time on that topic over the last 5 years. And we've put a lot of support structures in place. Now, admittedly, some of that has come with a dollar sign attached to it. But we've made some decisions, and I'm sure we'll talk about budget at some point in time. I always think about budget as a reflection of what you're prioritizing as a district. What you're investing your money into should be a direct reflection of where are you trying to make that impact. And so we've put some additional support structures in place within the school day to support some of our Spanish-speaking students and families and our larger Hispanic population. And I am just really, really proud of the fact that this past school year, and I'll talk more about graduation rates in general at some point in time here too tonight. But this last school year, we had 39 students identifying as Hispanic ethnicity in the class of 2021, and they graduated at a 92% clip. Which, when I get to tell you a little bit more about the Malala community, as this conversation goes on, I think you'll realize just how impressive that student achievement is. And that was not by accident. That was through some really, really intentional structure building that we've done. And it's an incredible rise from where that student population was just 5 years ago, and really, really proud of the work that our students and staff have done in that respect. So to wrap up this response, that focus on systems and structures that support student learning.
Okay, we're on question number 6. What are the most critical elements in creating a good working relationship between staff, administration, and the school board?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I've given this a lot of thought this school year in particular as I think about the challenges facing educators right now. We all know that it's been an incredibly difficult couple of years in many respects for lots of our educators. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I have real concerns about our ability collectively as a pre-K through 12 institution across the nation of retaining and recruiting those really high quality educators. And that's going to just be a real challenge for us in the years moving forward. Certainly it's a challenge for us today, and I don't see that changing immediately. And so when I think about that, the first thing that I think about is climate, is school climate. And when I talk about school climate, yes, that refers to students, but for this question specifically, it refers to staff. It refers to building leaders. It refers to school board members. How do we create that school environment where folks are happy to come to work in the morning, right? Where they're feeling empowered, where they're feeling they can follow their passion, where they feel that they are, have that clear vision of where the organization is, where the organization is going, and they have the autonomy to be the best professionals, to be the best educators that they can be. And frankly, as I think about the critical elements to creating that, it certainly starts on a foundation of just honesty, transparency, relationship building. Look, folks want to work with people they like. and without being boastful, I think that the vast majority of people that I've worked with over the years, that I've worked alongside, would probably say, hey, Brad's a pretty good guy to work for and work with. And I think that goes a long way in terms of creating that school environment where staff and when I say staff, I'm referring to every single person that contributes to the operation of the school district. Administration, school board included in that. It starts with having that really positive rapport with one another, and I feel like that is one of those pieces that you're never going to have it solved completely. It will continue to require intentional time and energy. I'll give you a line here. Just because I showered yesterday doesn't mean I shouldn't shower again tomorrow, right? Just because we focused on school culture and school climate yesterday doesn't mean that the problem is now solved and we're done with it. It's great, everybody's fine, and we're gonna move on. No, it's one of those pieces that continues to need to be nurtured and in a very intentional way. And I think as I think about that relationship between staff and administration and school board, folks want to feel empowered. Folks want to feel heard. They want to feel like they've got a voice in the organization. And by the way, that applies to students too. I could just as easily lump students into this mix, or I could lump parents into this mix, right? Those things that make for a good working relationship between staff, administration, and school board certainly apply to our students and parents and other stakeholders as well.
Thank you.
Okay, tell us about your previous experience related to directing, planning, building, and implementing a school district budget, including managing budget shortfalls.
Yeah, certainly. So, I'm going to be real honest here. I've had a lot of experience in terms of managing budgets at the building level, and programmatically. Certainly, my first administrative experience was as an athletic director and assistant principal in Winona, and so right out of the gates, that was 10 years ago. Right out of the gates, I really had a lot of opportunity in terms of day-to-day involvement in planning for and execution of the annual budget. I already made the comment earlier that I really see the budget as a proclamation of the priorities of the district. Now, there's challenges associated with school budgets, of course. I know that La Crescent Hoka's enrollment level looks very different today than it did, say, 2 decades ago, right? That's a reality for a lot of districts, and I'd love to dig into that a little bit deeper. I mean, certainly there's just some demographics that have shifted in our communities in southeastern Minnesota. There's no question about that. There's school choice issues, et cetera. I'd really want to dig more into the details of what that demographic, student enrollment trends have looked like. But I do know the realities and the challenges of declining enrollment. Certainly, I experienced it in Winona when I was a building principal there. We were in a place where our enrollment was declining over the course of several consecutive years, and really had the opportunity to be a part of that work in prioritizing, again, trying to keep those cuts to a minimum, and really trying to prioritize those cuts as far away from the students and from the classrooms as we possibly can. The reality is the vast majority of our budgets in a pre-K through 12 system are human costs, right? Our salary and benefits. And so we have to, be mindful of certainly, again, minimizing the impact that we have at the classroom level and on student success. When I think about the process of creating that budget, it doesn't, even though I haven't had that district level superintendent experience, this is an area really of comfort for me. And I lean on the folks that do know what's going on right now. Lean on folks like Dana in the operations manager role to really bring me up to speed and help me as a superintendent lead that work as a district as well. And the other piece I'll just mention briefly is, I've had the last 5 years of experience in Oregon, and there's some things happening here that are not happening in Minnesota from a school funding standpoint. There are some things happening in Minnesota that, frankly, I have to knock a little rust off and refresh my own knowledge and memory. And frankly, I'm intentionally seeking out those opportunities already this winter and spring. I've been fortunate to connect with some business managers that are working in your corner of the state, and really just reacclimating myself to Minnesota school finance as I prepare to make the transition back to Minnesota.
Thank you.
All right, Brad. We're looking for a leader who has a record of involvement and visibility in both the school district and the greater community. Provide us with examples of how you'll be involved, visible, approachable, and accessible in our district and the greater community.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way to lead, than being out front and being visible in the community. And what that has historically looked like for me is just being present in our classrooms, in our schools, at our athletic events, our extracurricular, whether it be arts and music, etc. So certainly within the school district itself, one of the things that appeals to me about a size of school district like La Crescent Hoka is the notion that I can still be really, really connected to the classroom from the superintendent's office. I wouldn't want to necessarily be a superintendent in a larger district where I feel like I've lost that connection to the classroom. So, staff, I want to support our staff first and foremost as an instructional leader. And I think I would have the ability to do that in a district like La Crescent Hoka. I want to support our students by, I've always prided myself on, I'm a principal of a school of about 720, 730 students right now. And I pride myself on the fact that I can go out, into the commons at lunch or during passing time, and I know the vast majority of students by face and name and can call them out by name and have a conversation with them. To me, that's what drives the work for me is knowing who we're doing the work for and having those connections with students. I want to talk about the larger community visibility and involvement. Give you an example of work that I've done over the last 2 years here in Molalla. I had the opportunity a couple years ago to get on kind of the ground floor of the community was doing some visioning work, creating a 10-year community vision. And I got involved in that work immediately as a high school principal and said, I want to make sure that our student voice is represented in this process. I want to be very intentional about bringing in some opportunities into our school to have some focus groups within the high school setting, get our staff and students involved in this process. And, that then kind of springboarded me into, I was invited to be a part of the City Economic Development Committee. And I've done that work now for the last couple of years. And, we're working on all the same things that other small communities across the United States are working on. We're talking about downtown revitalization. We're talking about how do we attract, new businesses to the community. I've led some of the work around our branding and marketing. How are we, selling ourselves as a community? And so, that's one example of that I've really been entrenched in these last couple of years with trying to create those partnerships between the school district, and in this case, the city. In other cases, it's perhaps been partnerships with post-secondary institutions. It's been partnerships with other community organizations, business partners within the community, really trying to create, even in the high school principal role, and I would see that stepping up another notch in the superintendent position, but even in the high school principal role, really trying to be quite active in seeking out new partnerships and nurturing those existing partnerships.
All right, thank
All
you.
right. How do you build trust and collaboration within the school district? Provide an example to show how you've done that in your current assignment.
Yeah, well, I think it starts with, people trust you when they see that you're being honest and you're being transparent, your actions match the words, right? I think that's where we're seeing some leaders criticized lately is, you say one thing and your actions demonstrate something else. I think that's where folks lose faith and lose trust. And so it comes down to being a person of strong morals, being a person of, again, that folks know that they can trust. Let's be honest with you. It's hard to be in leadership right now. There's an overarching theme of distrust in our country right now around people in position of authority, if you will. I hate to even use that word necessarily, but there's been an erosion of trust in our systems, and I'm confident that we're going to see that pendulum swing back the other direction. But it takes leaders that can be honest, can be transparent, can, even when people don't like the message that you're delivering, to still deliver it with a level of respect and empathy, and strive towards creating those relationships where civility is the approach. And again, unfortunately, in some of our communities, we haven't seen that frequently enough here lately. So, you build that trust and you build that collaboration, frankly, by connecting with people, right? They have to know you. They have to know who you are. They have to see that you're in it for the students. And if you do that, if you make your decisions and your actions are centered around what's best for students, and we take all this adult drama out of it, man, that goes a long way. And I think that most folks, staff, parents, if they can see that we as a school district are doing what's right by our students, that goes a long way in building that trust, building that collaboration. And I think seeking out those opportunities proactively. Don't wait for the crisis to happen and then expect that folks are going to collaborate around the solution. Proactively develop those relationships. Seek out those opportunities from the get-go to have all stakeholders involved in what we're doing as a school district. I just firmly believe that public schools are there to serve their communities, and vice versa. Their communities are there to serve the public school system. And it ought to be viewed as that type of partnership. And I think that's, it takes work to accomplish that. It doesn't just happen by accident. It takes a lot of intentional effort to foster those relationships. But I think that's important work for the long-term health of the school district and the communities that we support.
I'm sorry, did you give an example of that?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let me give an example of one thing we've done specifically in my current community. I mentioned our Hispanic population a little bit earlier. We said, gosh, we're not getting our Hispanic parents into our schools. We're not, they're not showing up on our district committees. They're not showing up in, those voices are not being represented. And we said, where are the hurdles there? And how can we try to remove some of those hurdles? So frankly, we became more intentional as a school and as a district with reaching out to some of our Spanish-speaking communities and helping kind of find those community leaders, those liaisons that could help bridge that gap between this parent community that we were trying to reach and the school district, where maybe there was not a high level of inherent built-in trust at the moment. So I'll give one example of going out to the Spanish-speaking church service at a local Catholic church that happens to be, a staple of our Hispanic community here. And that type of intentional outreach, I think, just has really gone a long way with us building those connections, building those relationships with the parent community that we really identified as, look, we need to do more to reach out and grow that partnership.
Thank you.
Thanks. What would your school board and/or administration say are your strengths and areas of improvement?
Yeah, so I'd say on the strength side of things, certainly a strong communicator, hopefully in both written and verbal form. I think that we've had a lot of practice over the last 2 years in terms of, all of the changes, all of the challenges that have been in front of our pre-K through 12 school districts these last couple of years. So lots of practice to be really clear in our communication, be really transparent in our communication, be clear about how we can partner between school and home. And again, that partnership has never been more important than it is right now. It's never been more important than, us trying to tackle distance learning together last year. It's never been more important as we've tried to reacclimate to our in-person instruction this year. So I'd say communication would hopefully be identified as a strength by lots of folks that I've worked with. I hope that folks would identify my collaborative nature, the fact that I'm a relationship builder first, that I seek first to listen and learn. I know that folks would say that about my first year here 5 years ago, that I set out to learn the community, learn the system, learn the structures first, not come in with a wrecking ball and tear everything down, but to say, hey, to go back to that, one of my initial responses, what's already working really well here, and what do we, where can we make those tweaks and adjustments to continue to improve? I think folks would say that I'm a learner. I know enough to say I don't know everything. I don't know a lot of things, right? I need to lean on the good people that are around me, and I'm going to dig into the work. I mean, frankly, I'm just give one really quick example. When I became an elementary principal, it was not a position I had applied for. It was a position that the superintendent came and stood in my office door and said, "Hey, Brad, we've got a principal position opening up in the district. We think you'd be a great fit for it. What do you think?" And I said, "Elementary? Wow, I've never given that a thought ever." And it was a fantastic experience for me. And frankly, I went in with a level of humility to say, look, teachers, staff members, I need your support. I am not the instructional leader today that you need me to be, but I'm going to work really, really hard to be a learner and to become that instructional leader for you. And in the meantime, there are other things that I can bring to the table. There are a lot of skills and attributes that I think I can bring to the table to effectively impact change in this school. But just that recognition of, we all have a learning curve. And so I'll take that to the second part of this question. Areas for improvement are simply all the things that I don't know today, right? I'm just going to be really honest with you. I've never been prepared for any new position on day one, right? I just have not been, and I don't think I ever will be. So if I come in on July 1st as the new superintendent of La Crescent Hoka, I'm going to have a lot to learn simply about the communities, the schools, right? And what needs exist from the superintendent's office. And without being boastful, that's been true of every single position I've ever started. On day one, I was not prepared for that role. Yet, I've gotten to be pretty good at each of those roles that I've been in. And so again, I think that goes back to that notion of just being a learner and being willing to listen first, and And so, when I think about my areas of improvement, it's just all of the things that I've never had the chance to do before that are required out of the superintendent's job.
Thank you, Brad. We are down to 28 minutes left.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we are on question 11. This is a two-part question. How will you lead to ensure that the diverse backgrounds of all members in our school community will be heard and included? And how would you create an inclusive learning and work environment for all members?
Yeah, so I've touched on some of this already, but I've really focused just on one particular. I've focused on the Hispanic student population that we have here in Molalla, but diverse backgrounds can mean a lot of different things, right? It isn't just necessarily about race, it's about all different student needs. And the first thing that comes to mind for me on this is how do we incorporate student voice into our schools? I've been a firm believer at every grade level. Yes, it looks different at the high school level than it looks at the middle school or elementary level. But how do we embed student voice as just the way we do business? And when I talk about student voice, I talk about students they're our customers, right? They are the people we are serving as a school district. And so we have to look to our students to say, how are we doing in serving you? And that can look a lot of different ways. It can take on some very formal structures, and it can take on some very informal structures in just how we interact with students in our classrooms each day, how we connect with parents, etc. And so when I think about the diverse backgrounds of all members of a school community, that starts with all members of a school community feeling like they belong, like they are a part of that school community, like they have a voice in that school community. And it comes back to some of the thoughts I shared earlier about how do you create, how do you build, how do you nurture that school climate. Before, I was talking about it more from a staff perspective. But now, let's think about it a little bit more from including students into the mix there as well. How do we make sure that our students have a place and have a staff that they feel like they can connect with their classmates in a safe and comfortable learning environment? And we don't want students to feel as if they're outsiders in their own school community, right? I can tell you right now that's going to lead to certainly underachieving academically. It's going to lead to attendance issues. It's going to lead to all kinds of issues around mental health, social emotional well-being, etc. And so we really have to be intentional about seeking out all voices, all stakeholders within our school community. And how I want to give you maybe a specific example or two of how I've done that in positions that I've been in. One way that's just been really, really simple for us is having student focus groups where I buy some pizzas for a small group of students, and they come in and they sit with me or maybe another staff member around the conference room table. And students have loved that opportunity. Just call it Pizza with the Principal. They love that opportunity to feel like, oh my gosh, the principal cares about what I have to say about this school community. The principal wants to hear ideas from me about how we can improve our school climate. And, I'm very intentional about who I invite to those conversations. And I try to create a very diverse set of perspectives in seeking out that feedback. And I think we can do that same type of effort could be applied to staff members, can be applied to parents and community members. Again, how do we engage all of the stakeholders in our school district so that they feel invested and like they're a part of that school environment?
Thank you.
Why are you looking to move on from your current position?
Yeah, so, I obviously addressed this a little bit right up front, but for us, certainly the draw to be back back with family in Minnesota right now is certainly a high priority for us as a family. That's a commitment that we've made. And, you know, I already mentioned to you as well, I was already looking at superintendent positions a year ago out here in Oregon. At that point, a return to Minnesota wasn't necessarily on our radar. That was a decision that we made last summer as a family. But again, I've had aspirations to move in this direction. I've certainly seen myself on this path for the last several years now, and I feel like I'm well positioned based on the experience that I've gained over the course of my career, based on the skills and attributes that I possess. I just feel like I can have a really positive impact on students and staff in that superintendent role.
Thank you.
Brad, how would you develop an environment for teaching, administrative, and support staff to achieve new levels of excellence in education for children of all abilities? Give us an example of developing a successful environment.
Sure. So I think this starts with, you know, you meet students where they're at, right? You recognize, and you've got good assessment tools in place. I've done some of the research on La Crescent Hoka, and I see some of the structures that are already in place. For example, as you think about, you know, all students reading at grade level by grade 3. I see a lot of robust structures around student assessment, around, you know, intentional instructional strategies. And that's what it takes, right? I mean, that's the work. You know, I've already mentioned, I really see my role as the superintendent in this district as being first an instructional leader. And to do that, really taking stock again of what are the support structures that are already in place as a district? What are we doing to really utilize those high leverage instructional practices? Again, varies across grade levels, right? What we're doing in that K-3 world might look different than what we're doing at the middle school level, or different than how we're supporting students at the high school level. But really creating those academic support structures, certainly, yes. But it's not just those academic interventions either. We have to think about this kind of from the whole child perspective too. What do we need in place in terms of social emotional learning, right? I know that La Crescent Hoka has used the Step 2 SEL curriculum. You know, I know that elementary teams are doing some work right now. The CPI team is doing some work with Dan Heisen over at UWL. All of those things, right? The PBIS component at the Lancer Way, right? All of those things matter. All of those pieces create that successful environment. What are our opportunities for students in athletics and extracurricular activities, in the music and arts, etc.? All of that combined is what creates that successful environment. So, yes, first and foremost, those structures that are supporting academic achievement for students, but also how are we supporting students in terms of behavioral support? How are we supporting students from a social emotional perspective? I know your community came together in December and had some roundtable discussions where, you know, parents had a lot of really good feedback to share about their concerns around student behavior, around bullying, around cell phones and social media. All of that's really good feedback for the school leaders to continue to address those issues and try to create that community. Again, comes back to creating that caring, welcoming environment for all. I'll give you one quick example of how we have developed a successful environment in my current position. Had the opportunity, 4 years ago now, it was my second year here, was able to add a position. We wrote a job description from scratch. We called it our student success coach. And our initial intent there was to support the transition into 9th grade. We really identified that 8th to 9th grade year transition as a point of where we really needed to put some intentional effort and also support our transfer students. We were having a fair number of transfer students at that time, a growing community. Lots of new houses were going up, and we were having all kinds of students coming in. We're saying, we're not supporting our transfer students. So created that position with the intent of supporting the 9th grade transition and supporting transfer students coming in. And boy, it's been fantastic. I've got a great person in that role, which goes a long way, right? That helps. But what we've been able to do is we've created such a strong support system at the 9th grade level. Now we've been able to shift our focus a little bit more to the 10th grade level, because we've identified that as actually the grade level that we're most likely to experience a student dropout is actually at the 10th grade level. And that comes from lots of data crunching that we've done. We've looked at all the specifics of who have our non-graduates been over the years and what are the hurdles that they've faced. So that's an example of how we have built a system and then evolved the system to meet, continuing needs.
All right, thank you.
All right, how would you suggest establishing a reasonable balance between budgeting for needed school district improvements and maintaining the fiscal integrity of the school district?
Yeah, certainly one of our primary responsibilities as a superintendent, as a school board, is to be, those responsible fiscal stewards for the community. And, familiar with what La Crescent Hoka budget looks like right now in terms of its operating budget. Obviously, the community really stepped up and supported the efforts of the school district with the operating levy back in 2017. Understand that to be a 10-year operating levy, and that's kudos to the community for supporting that. Looks like at about a 2-to-1 clip. So that's all good news for the district, right? I understand that there's been a recent significant investment in the facilities of the district. I know that some of those projects have just wrapped up. Again, those are all exciting things for the current status of the district and looking to years into the future. So again, enrollment drives what that budget's going to look like. And I would want to be very involved in that work to say what does the future look like for La Crescent Hoka School District in terms of student enrollment? What do the future trends show us? What can we do as a district to maximize what our student enrollment looks like? And I'll say it again that the district really should be a reflection of what are we prioritizing as a district. Easier said than done, right? We're in an environment where a lot of school districts are being asked to do more with less. You never quite know at the legislative level what state school funding is going to look like, and that suspense of every other year with the new biennium, how that's all going to shake out. But again, I think that if you keep your eye on the student, right, and you focus your budget on the needs of the students, then you're gonna do the best with the resources that you have. Of course, there's always going to be room for more. There's always going to be, gosh, I wish we could do this, that, or the other thing. And the last thing that I'll say is creating those partnerships too. Creating those partnerships across the community, with business partners, with post-secondary. I just think of a number of things that I've been able to partner on in the past that have given students opportunities that frankly wouldn't have been possible with our financial constraints. But in a partnership, we were able to leverage kind of some shared resources and create some win-win opportunities for our students and for others in the community.
Thank you, Brad. You've got about 13 minutes left.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Describe your approach to people that disagree with you.
That's never happened, Greg. Next question. Except my wife. All right. So, I think I mentioned earlier a focus on respect, on empathy, on civility. That's the start, right? We are going to disagree on certain things. That's boy, if you're doing the hard work of supporting students and staff, there are going to be moments where a school board member is going to disagree with me, a school administrator is going to disagree with me, a teacher, a parent, a student, right? But to be able to have those conversations, to be able to have those interactions in a respectful and civil way is going to go a long way. And it sure helps when you've already got some of those existing relationships in place. It's a whole lot easier to disagree with somebody that you've already got that got that connection with. It's much harder when that's the first or only interaction you've ever had with somebody. I'm just giving an example from my day to day. I had to make a parent phone call today. It was really not on a very pleasant subject, and fortunately, I had some past connections with this particular parent. It made for a conversation that probably looked and felt very different than it may have otherwise, and we came to even though maybe a disagreement about next steps, at least a common understanding of why we had to take those next steps. And so, again, right now, the notion of we're seeing so much strife, so much headbutting between people in general, but I think in thinking about school districts and their communities, sometimes are butting heads right now, is really trying to get back to that place where we say, hey, we're on the same team here, right? We ought to be supporting one another, and we ought to be all focused on supporting our students and supporting our staff. So yes, there's going to be disagreements, and you handle those in a respectful, civil way that doesn't escalate the situation.
Thank you.
Are we going to keep going or leave time for his questions? 5 minutes left.
Keep going.
Yeah, let's keep
Keep
going.
Okay. Question number 16. Our district has a high percentage of special needs students. How will you improve our special education system? What will be your process? And do you have specific solutions you would like to implement?
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to be mindful of the clock here too. I see three more questions for me, and so I'm going to try to keep each of these to less than 3 minutes or so. I see that La Crescent Oka does have a partnership with Hiawatha Valley Ed District. I'd want to learn a lot more about that because, frankly, I hesitate to make too many assumptions about what that service model looks like until I really understand what that partnership is currently. But what I will say is, before we even get to that place of students that are qualifying for special education, I think we have to think about the other support structures that we have in place, right? Thinking about this from a tiered intervention model, and we say, all right, how are we supporting all students, at a tier 1 level, good for everybody, right? How are we supporting students in that tier 2 level, and really hopefully reserving those special education supports for those students who are in that tier 3, the highest level of need. So certainly I understand that La Crescent Hoka has access to things like some title support for students, using the ADSYS grant wisely to try to build some interventions that, frankly, let's keep more students out of special education first. I don't think we ought to take lightly that notion of a student qualifying for special education support services. So first of all, what interventions can we put in place prior to getting to that point? Then, when a student is qualifying for special education support services, really leveraging the resources that we have. And again, I'm just going to be honest with you. I'd want to dig in much more deeply into what that partnership looks like internally within the district and with Hiawatha Valley before I would say, hey, I've got specific solution A, B, and C. I just don't have that level of knowledge right now to be able to really identify what those specific strategies might look like.
Thank you.
What has been the most unpopular decision you have had to make, and how did you handle the reaction to this decision?
Wow. How about a decision I didn't get to make, but I had to carry out the execution of the decision? Let's go there, because I'm dealing with that one right now. I understand that you all dropped the mask mandate here a few weeks ago, and I know there's been lots of controversy, across the nation on that one. Our school is still in a place where masks are required. Our state, I should say, is still in a space where masks are required right now. It was just announced a few days ago that across the state of Oregon that requirement is going to drop on March 12th. But we've got 7 more school days between now and March 12th that are going to continue to be a battle, quite frankly. It's been a very, very hot topic in our community specifically. There have been student walkouts. There have been some adult organized protests outside of our schools and at the district office, et cetera. And so even though that wasn't my decision, it's on me at the building level right now to navigate these conversations, both with students, with parents, with staff, right? People have polar views on this question still in our community. And I think we've really had to navigate this very, very carefully. We've had to be very respectful to one another. I've had some lengthy conversations with some of our students and some of their parents, and really trying to, again, respect the perspectives that are out there, and yet go back to saying, look, these are the district policies and rules that are in place right now. These are the state's restrictions and rules that are in place right now. And if we want to advocate for change, what are the proper channels that we can do that through? Who's the target audience here for this particular topic? And we've had some great conversations with students on that item specifically. To say, all right, look, if we want to advocate for change, what should that message be? And who's the target audience of that message? And so, that's the silver lining. It's been a great learning opportunity for us as a school and as a community. It's been a great opportunity for students and parents to advocate for something that they feel strongly about. And so it's been really, really challenging for us. I'm just going to be honest with you. I'm going to be so glad when we're not fighting over masks anymore and we can get back to the business of teaching and learning. But for right now, this is a crisis that has consumed a lot of our time and energy in the last few weeks.
All right, Brad, last question. Describe a time when you wished you'd been more collaborative with others. What did you do and what did you learn? And then you can dovetail into what questions do you have for us?
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. Well, think about this one for a minute. I think that there have been times, frankly, where I probably, and I've gotten better at this as my career has gone on, but where I haven't been as willing to delegate some decision making or some responsibility to others as I would have liked. And I'll go back. I think I'm going to go back to my elementary principal experience for a moment. Won't go into the details because I want to protect the innocent here. But had an opportunity as a school community that was centered around some curriculum decisions, some professional development decisions, and a portion of our staff really felt left out of that conversation. That was never the intent, but they felt almost like it was an intentional, we were blocking them out of the conversation. Oh, Brad hand selected this group of teachers and they developed this professional development plan. They looked at this, these curriculum resources, et cetera. And frankly, I looked at it from their perspective and I thought, yep, I can see why they felt that way. And so that was a moment of learning for me, that even though that was not my intent by any stretch of the imagination, the way that group was identified, the way that work was carried out, we had some folks that felt left in the dark. We had some folks that felt like, why didn't I get to have a voice in this? And there were fair questions to ask. And frankly, that was on me. That was on me as a leader at the building level to not be more inclusive with. I thought I had a cross section of representation from the building, but I didn't. And that was a miss. That was a miss on my part, and hopefully a lesson learned, and one that I hopefully haven't repeated too many times since then.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. I want to be respectful of the schedule that you're on. I know you've got 4 candidates tonight, and I also want to make sure you get just a little bit of a break in between. So, I hope we get a chance to visit again on Monday and maybe dig into this a little bit more. But I am interested in maybe asking one question today, and if one or two or more of you want to chime in for just a moment, I would love to hear it. Is there a next big opportunity that you see for the La Crescent Hoka School District moving forward? And if there is, what are the hurdles that might stand in the way of that becoming a reality for the students and for the district?
All right, I'll go. They always have me go for some reason. Well, aside from building a football program back finally, I would say finally being able to define a strategy for the district. Unfortunately, we've been kind of trying to hold steady between building buildings and COVID and, superintendent turnover. We haven't had a chance to really look at our strategy as a district. And so that would be my perspective on that.
Thanks, April. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
That was pretty good.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
And April, I want to just affirm that comment with, I noticed that the strategic plan is from 2017 to 19. Okay, yes, that has to be a priority for new superintendent and board to make that a priority early on. But I also want to give the district some credit on your World's Best Workforce document does have many components of what a strategic plan might include. I just think we would have to be really intentional going into that strategic planning process to make sure all stakeholders have had an opportunity to be a part of that work. The World's Best Workforce is probably a little bit more of an internal document, a little bit more staff created. And so I think that opportunity sits in front of us on the strategic planning front. And April, to your point, I think one of the key things that the school board can do is work with the superintendent and the staff to really create that clear vision for the district. If the staff and students and parents know this is the direction, these are the goals and aims of the district, that can just do so much to really build some momentum in the district.
All right, very good. Thank you, Brad. I
Thank
think
you.
that is a wrap.
Thank you.
Hey, I sure appreciate your time tonight, and again, just really am honored to have had the opportunity to spend the last hour with you tonight.
Thank you.
Gary Lee will be calling you from MSBA.
Perfect. Thanks so
Thanks
much,
very
Eric.
much.
Appreciate it. Have a great night, everybody.
Yep, you too.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.